It is the 200 level. Mike Carpenter in the basement studio on a week that it's kind of hard to describe what Final Four week is like other than bliss. You just get to sit and soak in it. Think about the game, sure, but not overly so. And what it, or how it is, I should say, different than the first two weekends of the tournament is there is a sense of arrival and a little bit less anxiety that comes with the upcoming matchup. You got UConn on Saturday. You're favored by 1.5. It went down from 2.5. Ken Pom suggests a 4-point Illinois win. You have Michigan and Arizona on the other side playing the late game. And I know a lot of people talk about that as if it's the de facto championship. And on one hand, given that we're so close to winning a national title, I should feel tight, nervous, anxious, a sense of urgency, all of that, right? Because there is no sports achievement that I want more than a national title. There's not. That said, there is a tangible accomplishment in making a Final Four. And whereas Saturday I woke up and my stomach was in knots and I was thinking, please God, don't lose to Iowa, and trying my very best to think mostly, oh, think how sweet it'll be if you beat Iowa. It was hard to stem that tide. It was hard not to just think, God, get me to 7:30. And please, when I get there, let Illinois be the team that won. Saturday, on the other hand, is very celebratory. And I don't know what your plans are, but for us, we're in the garage. We got a much bigger crew coming over. We got a whole big spread. And I will wake up Saturday with this sort of bounce in my step and genuine excitement, much more than anxiety or nerves. When the game starts, I'm going to want to win, and I'm going to want to win badly. If they lose, I'll be sad. I'll be bummed. And the party will get a little bit quieter, and people might leave a little bit earlier than they otherwise would. But it's difficult for me to foresee like this existential dread that I might have felt if we had not beaten Iowa. Having done that, it's like we get to just relax to an extent, feel unencumbered, celebrate what this team accomplished, know that a banner is going up and you can buy all the swag and all that stuff that I love every bit of, and that you do have a lifetime memory. And there was something really cool today. So I got to give Brad Underwood credit in a variety of ways, and that's why today I'm going to eat a hat. Not long from now, I will eat that hat. I got to give him credit for this, though. After the game Saturday, and again today as he was speaking to fans, a pretty sizable contingent over at the Oven, and my friend Kent went over there to check it out. He said, I hope that we gave you all lifetime memories. And the fact of the matter is, he did. And thanks to him, I was able to, with friends, and then after the game with my parents and my sister and her family and their new puppy that they got Saturday, talk about a perfect day. Illinois makes a Final Four and you get a puppy. That is a lifetime memory. This week, as my student teacher is in takeover, I plant myself outside of the room because he has to be able to operate without the specter of Mr. Carpenter, because students will act differently, right? So he's running the show. He's doing a great job. And I'm going through some grading and stuff like this. And I'm formulating a revised chapter for the book, and striking while the iron is hot. And I'm noticing that as I'm writing about this season and this tournament run, the freshness of it is making it very easy to do so. Like I've churned out 20 new pages like that. And that's before this weekend's even hit. And this leads me to the really fun discussion. Illinois can win a national title. They're 80 good minutes of basketball away from doing just that. What a world. And it's not outside the realm of possibility. They are favored to win Saturday, and if they take care of business in what is a pretty favorable matchup, name on the jersey aside, a pretty favorable matchup, then you shoot your shot Monday. See what happens. And it would be unequivocally the coolest sports thing in my life and nothing would top it. I've seen the Yankees win World Series, but that's New York. I don't get to share in that with people in Central Illinois. I watched the Bulls win 6 out of 8 when I was a kid. Unbelievable. But, I was young, and that's professional sports, and I don't have that intrinsic attachment to it. Illinois football winning a Citrus Bowl, I know that might not seem like the biggest thing, but to me it was. Same with Music City and, making Florida bowl games and stuff like that again. So I've been very lucky and fortunate in that regard to have a lot of successes to be able to celebrate, but this would be the ultimate, and it's not that far away. It just isn't. It's going to be hard, but there is something almost storybook about the way in which this is unfolded. There is something storybook in the way that UConn pulled that game off, and you're thinking, wow, okay, you beat Iowa, a Big Ten rival. Instead of Duke, which you have really no pre-existing relationship with, you get UConn, you played earlier in the year and 2 years ago, ended your season with a 30-0 run. On the other side of the bracket, if you were to make it to Monday, you get either intra-conference rival Michigan, or you get Arizona, who we have a history, for those that have been around long enough and watched the tournaments of the early 2000s. But more than that, there is this very tangible sense when watching this team in the last 4 games that they are, in fact, peaking at the exact right time. And we've seen time and time again in the NCAA tournament, sometimes it's just who's hottest. Of course, you have to be good. You have to be top 10 good. It is rare, exceedingly rare for a not top 10 caliber team to win it all. As it stands, Illinois is number 4 on KenPom. So they are metrically where they should be. The odd man out is UConn, right around 10. Teams in Illinois' position have won the championship before. So why not them now? Why not them in Indy? Talk about storyline. You got basically home away from home. After a couple of road trips, business trips, if you will, to Greenville and Houston, now you're back in the Midwest in the cozy confines, and not very cozy because it's cavernous, I should say, confines of Lucas Oil Stadium with a bunch of orange all around you. So I don't want to sit here and say anything is predestined or anything is given. I felt going into the 21 tournament with that 1 seed Illinois team and Iowa and Kofi that, man, what do you know? Just like in 05, you were 16 years removed from a Final Four. You got the 1 seed every 16 years. You're going to make this run. And then you didn't. So no, nothing is predestined or predetermined. But I do feel pretty darn good about them making Monday. And at that point, you're 40 minutes away. So shoot your shot. And today we'll talk about UConn. We'll talk about the season at large. I'll talk about Brad Underwood, which is what I'll do right after talking about the sponsors. And I got the hat ready to go. I got my hat ready to go. And it might be something that you might be able to use yourself this weekend. I got a little crafty. Before I get too far ahead of myself, got to remind you that the 200 level is brought to you by Hamilton Walkers, downtown Champaign, steak, seafood, and spirits. This place, my favorite restaurant in town. It's 5-star service. Every time you go there, they take care of you. I love a place that brings you out bread fresh from the kitchen, along with butter. They got herb butter and regular butter that they make in-house, along with everything. It is a scratch kitchen. So that means that everything down to the ketchup that you dip your deliciously crisp steak fries in is Hamilton Walker's very own. Medium steak, bone in. That's my choice. I mentioned the steak fries. Got to get an old fashioned, maybe 2 if you're feeling particularly spicy. And it is just a really great place to go for a pregame meal, for a Friday night, date night, formal, informal. It really doesn't matter. For as good as it is, there is no pretension at Hamilton Walkers. Appreciate Nathan and the staff over there. Hamilton Walkers, downtown Champaign. State Farm agent Brian Hansen, online at brianismyguy.com. Life, auto, home, business renters, you name it. Brian is my guy, and he could be your guy as well at brianismyguy.com. Big Illini fan. Brian came down the Matthew Meyer year. Unfortunate timing for him. And we did a couple of the live podcasts together, but I know that he is as happy as any other Illini fan with this run, and he's been terrific working with us as our insurance agent for, let's see, homeowners and auto. We get a bundle from State Farm. Our rates went down. because we've been safe drivers. And so we were rewarded with that. And already they were competitive rates that were beating really any of the competition. So mix that in with the service. State Farm agent Brian Hansen is my guy. He can be your guy as well at brianismyguy.com. Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend. Give them a call, 217-841-4728. Join their maintenance program. This includes no overtime or weekend fees, guaranteed same-day service, and they also will come for an AC check in the spring and a furnace check in the fall. We got ours coming up here in the it's next week, actually. We have our AC check, and just in time, as the weather has started to get warmer, our AC is already working great, but it's an older system, and it's been Dogtown operating and maintaining it for the last couple of years. So they are extending the shelf life of our system, and our house has been very comfortable thanks to the folks at Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing. Finally, Owen Builders LLC, online at owenbuildersllc.com for your next home improvement project. Check out a gallery of their work online at owenbuildersllc.com. Get a free quote while you're there. They have a myriad of projects on your home that they can work on, which is where the gallery is going to give you an idea of what some of those are. Appreciate Luke and his staff. That's owenbuildersllc.com. All right. It is time to eat a hat. Why am I eating a hat? Well, for those that are regular listeners or viewers, I have been critical of Brad Underwood, and I've tried to focus that criticism on a perceived lack of in-game adjustments, difficulty in pivoting when plan A doesn't work. That was the basis of it. Admittedly, and I'm writing about this in the book as well, I allowed existential dread at the notion of not ever making a Final Four again or sniffing the promised land to influence the way in which I criticized him and talked about him to a degree that might have made for occasionally compelling podcasting, because I don't have a filter and I am honest, but that's not always great if that honesty turns into brashness and maybe just straight up being kind of a dick about things. So for the moments that I have made it personal, that is something worth apologizing for, and I do, because that is, life's hard enough anyway, and I don't want this podcast to be a source of angst in a world that is full of it. It's sports. I get emotional and I wear it on my sleeve, but that is not an excuse for getting nasty. And I think a couple times this year I probably did. The biggest example of that would be me criticizing the swagger with which he carries himself and thinking, dude, you made a Final Four. This is unearned swag. Well, now he did make a Final Four. And in hearing him talk about it, and it's almost like I wasn't listening to this. I was blinded by this just really strong desire for my team to please get back to the Final Four, right? How much this place means to him. And I've talked about the fact that sometimes I think Brett Bielema comes off as a more authentic individual, that I don't feel like he's trying to sell me in the same way that Brad Underwood is. But I do believe, excuse me, I just shook the camera there, that Brad Underwood is genuine when he says that for a guy 39 years into this profession, this is his dream job and it means a lot to him. I said earlier this year as well, even in the depths of that February swoon, that I was rooting harder than ever for him because, one, he's not going anywhere, and that's clearer than ever. And two, given that fact, just go and do it. You know, like you got a roster capable of doing so. I think we all felt that at points throughout the year. And by God, they did. They made a Final Four. So I think it was after the Michigan game when there were quotes afterwards from maybe Brad and even Dusty May maybe as well saying, oh, well, we might see each other twice more. And I said, give me a break. You aren't going to make the Big Ten tournament final. You sure as hell aren't going to face them in March in the tournament. If this team makes a deep tournament run, I'll eat a hat. And I don't think I said Final Four. Deep tournament run. So this might have been something that even if they made the Elite Eight, I would have had to have done. Well, they did that, and now it's hat eating time on the 200 level. So what did I do? I decided that I would Google, because they have all the answers, Google how to eat a hat or how to prepare a hat. And I figured that since the Donner Party way back when, before they started eating each other, they ate boiled leather. And I thought, well, that's clothing of some kind, and it's a fabric or a material. So maybe what I should do then is see if I can't do that with one of my ball caps, because I say hat. I don't have like a fedora. I got baseball caps, right? And I don't really wear them because of the hair, as you well know. So come to find out, that's not a good idea. You shouldn't eat fibrous content like cotton fibers. It doesn't sit well in a human stomach. And the last thing I want ahead of this Final Four weekend is to turn my stomach like a Labrador retriever. I don't want to do that. So I had to get creative and think of a way to make an edible hat. And in doing so, I think I found something that if you want to commemorate this run and the wins in Houston and David Merkovich in particular, and then Brad Underwood when he got back wearing the same thing, why not a cowboy hat? Why not a cowboy hat, an edible cowboy hat? So a co-teacher of mine at Jefferson came up with this idea. She'd seen it before on Etsy or something. Pringles. Think about the shape of a Pringle. That is the bill. Okay. Step one. How about the top of the hat? Rolo candy. So I present to you on the video stream my edible hat. This right here is my edible hat, edible cowboy hat, in time for my comeuppance. Now, the thing about this, one, it's delicious. Two, it is very easy to make. And I would encourage you, if you are looking for a sweet treat for your garage party or wherever you're watching it, as I'm going to do, you get a can of Pringles, you get chocolate chips, milk chocolate or semi-sweet, and you get Rolo. And then what I also got from Michael's in town is orange cookie icing to just give it a little bit of a Illini flair. And right now I present to you this candy cowboy hat with which I'm going to eat the hat. Brad Underwood, thank you for returning this program to relevancy. Thank you for getting us to a Final Four. Thank you for giving Illini fans a lifetime memory. Thank you for giving me and my family a lifetime memory. And I think I speak for all of Illini fans when I say ILL, and let's eat the hat. Let's try this out. It's really good. And here's why. Sweet and salty. Now, one thing I learned, I did a trial run of 4 of these hats, okay? Now, what I discovered is that you don't necessarily want to ice the whole Pringle, and it's harder to do that anyway. So the easier thing to do is if you have some sort of like, icing spreader thing, and we got one that, because my wife's a pretty good baker, you can spread it on the top of the Pringle because you need it to adhere the Rolo, right? But it might actually not be a bad idea to keep the bottom of the hat blank. And this is kind of half-assed here. You see there's a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of not. I would say keep the bottom of the Pringle uniced. So you get the salt on the tongue as the chocolate and the caramel, or caramel, however you prefer to say it, in the Rolo washes over you. So, just good hat. Good hat right there. Coach Gothorpe says, why did I get my hopes up? It will be an actual hat. Fair. Now, as I mentioned, Coach Thorpe, I didn't want to have complications before the Final Four game, but I got a hat, and I hope it's something that you consider for your party. It just seemed perfect as I was thinking about this weekend. I went to the airport on Sunday. And I guess now that I think about it, I would have done that after I did the podcast. And sure enough, Kylan comes out with a hat first, and then Underwood donned it, back to Merkovich, the rightful owner of this cowboy hat. There's a few things I want to speak to that go beyond any game, and it's these sort of markers that I've only been able to experience every so often in town, and sometimes it's with the Big Ten title, and twice it's been with the Final Four. One of those is the experience of greeting the team at the airport. On Sunday, it was absolutely gorgeous outside. We've been really lucky this whole tournament run to have good weather, except for the Houston night where we had severe weather, but that kind of added this layer of excitement to all of it. And it was packed. I parked very far away from the Flight Star terminal, and they had the grass lots and all that. They had plenty of availability, like plenty of room there. And as I was there, I park, walk the quarter mile or so to the terminal, and you see, man, it's going to be really difficult to see anything as the team comes out. So I kind of resigned myself to the fact that I was there for the experience, and it's okay if I didn't see or hear much. Get the T-shirts, the jersey T-shirts, which are a knockoff or a replication of what they did in 05 from the same guy that designed it, but had to discontinue it because it was pre-NIL. So got one for me, two for two of my friends, one of whom is going to be in the garage for sure, coming down from Chicago, and one who we hope will come up from Louisville. If not for Saturday, has already determined that Monday, if Illinois makes it, would join us in Indy. So you get out there, there's the game day truck, there's all the excitement, and I see a little group over by the fence, by the runway. And I figure, well, what the hell? If I'm not going to see the players themselves all that well and Underwood and the coaching staff, let's see the plane land. So I go over there, and I got to love college kid humor. And I guess sometimes I see this with my eighth graders as well. And forgive the morbidity of this, but the plane is landing, and this group of college kids, one of them in this sort of comic voice says, "Please don't crash, not now." And I don't know how kindly some of the older people around us took to that. And then when the plane landed, this group of maybe 4 or 5 college guys went, "Yay!" And I just thought I was maybe slap happy, exhausted, 6 hours of sleep, no more than that, basking in the glow, and thought that was just freaking hilarious. Ran into a few people, listeners of the podcast, and just watched everything. And then it ended. Underwood gave a spiel, and then the players were escorted by a few different cops to their cars. And I'm walking back towards my car, and it just so happens to be the same direction that Andre and Keaton are walking. And I noticed that there's other Illinois fans in my same boat that are like, am I walking with these guys now? Like, should I follow? I probably shouldn't follow them. This sort of, reluctance to approach them. So it wasn't a throng of people throwing themselves at Keaton Wagler, a soon-to-be top 10 pick. Couple kids got pictures. I was 10 feet away from him, and I'm like, you're almost 40. Don't do it. And I didn't do it. Didn't ask for a picture. That's all I would have asked for. And thinking, man, the fact that I'm broaching this as a 40-year-old, 40-something, or soon-to-be 40-year-old, just speaks to the sort of childlike excitement that comes from something like this. That goes beyond the fact that, yeah, I'm an adult now, but, oh my God, that's Keaton Wagler. Oh my God, that's Andrei Stojakovic. Now I'm kind of kicking myself, as Big Tota says, I'd have done it. Yeah, I think I should have. Just got a quick selfie. I could have been far. Hey, Keaton, can you give me a little small thanks, man? Good luck in Indy. But then I also thought, just as a thought exercise, what would I say to them if I had an ability to just say something to each player as they got off the plane? And it's a really easy answer. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know you. I haven't met you. You simply wear the colors of my favorite university, the one that I attended, the one I grew up watching and rooting for. But thank you for a memory that cannot be taken away. And I know that I hit on this every so often, but because I've had a couple listeners mention its resonance to them, including the Music City Bowl, a family of, a husband, wife, and their 3 kids, and how he told me specifically that rang true to him, this idea that sports are accruing memories in the bank that bring you joy long after the fact. And that's what this team did. And that's not to be taken lightly. I would hope that there are things in my life that I can do that will give those closest to me memories. But so often they're tied up with sports or music or event-based kind of things. So one thing I've learned in a college community growing up in it is this sort of invaluable benefits that come from when your hometown team succeeds. We're seeing that this week. We're seeing as I got up here, oh boy, let's see. From Big Tota as well. I'm buying swag like crazy. When it all shows up, my wife is going to lose it. Yeah, I mean, my sister texted me today, went to the bookstore. They got glasses, they got mugs. I'm like, I want all of it. I want my garage awash in Final Four memorabilia. I want to buy T-shirts and eventually, whenever Keaton Wagler's Stitch jersey gets released, that got to get that. That's all good, man. Economic impact story, cliche as it is with sports journalism, that is ringing true right now. But it's this sort of the tentacles that reach out from this team's success touch so much of this community and beyond. And I even just think about Saturday coming up and how we'll have like 12 people in the garage. And that's not like some huge party, but it's more than the 6 we had last Saturday. And we were talking in this text thread, me and my friends, and I told them, and I do think I would hold true to this, if Illinois loses, I'd be sad. But I wouldn't be angry. And more than last weekend where there were the nerves and anxiety, I'm looking forward to the fact that no matter what, this is an all-time day. I am hosting a Final Four party for Illinois basketball in my garage that I have dressed over with Illini stuff left and right, hoping that someday I'd be able to actually use that space for something like this. And I get to with the people that I want to be around. And that's the good shit, man. I mean, it just is. And I know that on Saturday, people are going to have decisions to make. Are you going to watch it solo? Are you going to go out and try to share in it with other people? And these are kind of fun things that we have to think about and sometimes very carefully. What are we going to wear? What did I wear during the Iowa game? I've worn the same thing since the Penn game. I'm not changing that. From the shirt to the jean shorts to the shoes to the socks to the underwear to the bomber jacket to the watch. Nothing will change. To what I'm going to have to drink during the game. Not going to change. Like, sounds crazy, right? So much for being moderately stitious. I'm clearly superstitious, but it's sort of like I'm not going to be the reason. If there is a karmic thing up in the sky, I'm not going to be the reason why Illinois' good juju gets disrupted. I don't want to do that. So these are all the things that it's hard not to think about and smile as the week goes along. And, these weeks, man, how many more of these weeks will we get in a lifetime with how hard it is to get to a Final Four? I've said before that the best part of winning and advancing in the NCAA tournament from one weekend to the next is you get a week to sit and soak in it. And this is the second time in my conscious being, because I was, that I can remember, because I was 2.5 during the 89 team, that I've gotten to do that. And I hope I get to do it twice more in my life. I hope I get to do it more than twice, but you never know. You never know. And you can't take this for granted. And I really get the sense no Illini fans are. And that they understand the big deal that this is. I talked about eating the hat, the criticisms of Underwood. And as I was writing in the book too, this has been quite the reflection. And I'm going to, after all this dust settles, I'm not going to just put the book out like 2 days after. Like I will give it a couple weeks, but this is coming together quick. Like there will be a revision ready to go by the end of April for sure. And I was thinking about, okay, next season, watching this Illinois team and they drop a close loss. Frustration will happen. Criticism will happen, and sometimes it'll be warranted. But what's not going to be coupled with is this deep-seated fear that Illinois basketball isn't going to get there again, and not under this guy. And it's difficult now to know exactly how much lighter that's going to make things feel. Hey, was I culpable in making it heavier than it needed to be? Absolutely. But there certainly is within the Illini fan base, and I felt it at the end of that Michigan game at the State Farm Center. There was an albatross on our shoulders. There was the Loyola game. There was Bruce Weber not being able to follow up the success of 05. We've come tantalizingly close without the benefit of really following things up. There's no guarantee that Brad Underwood is going to follow up this Final Four with multiple Final Fours and a few national titles. There's no guarantee, certainly, of that. But unlike 05 and unlike 89, which had the Bruce Pearl thing not long after, doesn't it feel to you as if there is a guy capable of capitalizing on it, it is him? I talked about, I feel like he's selling me things. Well, he's got to be a salesman in his position. And he's particularly good at selling players on coming to play for him. Really good and talented players. And now you're going to send a guy to the lottery. You've gotten a Final Four. You have a good opportunity to retain a core of your team and then go build around them with backcourt dudes from the portal or Europe or what have you. And do you have confidence that he's going to go out and get dudes? Yes. Do you, after the last 4 games, have more confidence in his coaching ability when push comes to shove? And you might say, well, that's a small sample size to immediately pivot like that. But the manner in which this team beat these 4 tournament opponents, one of which is a perennial NCAA contender with Kelvin Sampson in Houston, and another which is fronted by a young, wonderkind coach in Ben McCollum, who, if I'm UNC and I don't get Tommy Lloyd, I would be looking at him next. I mean, that does change the calculus, and it does change the way that we view him and talk about him, and the way that I view him and talk about him. So the far-reaching positives of making this Final Four, man, and it will stay and last with us. Now, as I mentioned, there could be a disappointing loss Saturday, so let's talk about Saturday. I mean, do I think we're going to lose? I don't think we're going to lose. I think UConn is a far better matchup than Duke. We published that podcast Sunday morning, so I didn't see the Duke-UConn game, obviously, until that evening. Expected Duke to win, but expected it would be a close game. And it was not that for a while until UConn made a comeback, and Duke, just as much as UConn came back, choked. It took a miracle for UConn to get here, but they are clearly worthy of the occasion. Dan Hurley is the best coach in America. And he can drive you nuts, but you know what? I don't necessarily mind that college basketball has a villain, and he plays that role admirably well, and it's okay to have a heel out there, and that's what he is. But here's the thing about UConn and why I like this matchup. Good as Harris is down low, you are bigger than they are, and you've started to play to that strength. Caravan, really good power forward. He's difficult matchup in some respects, but I think that Murkovic in particular has stepped up defensively, and Humrickhouse can give you some stuff there too. And when you look down that lineup 1 through 5, clearly they are very good, and they are all scoring threats. But I don't think to the same degree that your best 5 are when they're on the court. And that leads to this question. Who is the better defensive team? And if you'd asked me a month ago, that's a pretty easy answer. UConn. I'm not so sure anymore. Overall, I think Illinois has a slight talent advantage. I think UConn, goes without saying, this is no slight on Underwood, has a coaching advantage. That's what Dan Hurley does. He maximizes whatever team he has. UConn also has not lost a game in the Final Four since, I think, Michigan State way back when, and when that was exactly. I think they're 12-1 in their last 13 games in the Final Four, some ridiculous number. Well, they're due, I guess. But throw all that out. When it comes down to matchups, you are bigger than them. You are slightly more talented than them. The metrics like you more than UConn, and you're playing your best ball right now. UConn is playing really good ball, but I don't think that Michigan State win was so much UConn's domination as it was Michigan State being unable to hit the broadside of a barn on offense. And that happened to Michigan State a few times this year. Furman, they gave him a little bit of a push. What was the second round game that UConn had? That one escapes me, but who has had the more impressive run? Well, UConn has had to play the highest seed in each of those matchups. Not an easy thing by any stretch. Illinois, though, has been, on the whole, more dominant. If you are to see continuation from what Illinois did last weekend in Houston, I think Illinois wins. And I think Trevor Valise made a very interesting point on the Illini Inquirer podcast. Him and Isaac Trotter were on there discussing the upcoming tournament. And both of them talked about, Trevor mentioned this at first. Illinois has not had that offensive explosion outside of the second half of Penn, but that was Penn. They haven't had that yet. That game where they're just splashing threes left and right. You'll have an opportunity to do that. And I think you'll get yours around the rim if you are so inclined to do so. But I do think that you will have an opportunity to shoot plenty of threes, which UConn defends pretty well. But back to this idea that Illinois might be due for one of those offensive explosions. And it is difficult to imagine a team that 4 games in a row have made that emphasis defensively, all of a sudden either forgetting or not caring to match that intensity when the lights are brightest. And I would be surprised at this point if Illinois does not come out with the same sort of defensive focus that we saw in Houston and all the way back in Greenville. And that will make it difficult for UConn. Again, Illinois is bigger. They're disruptive defensively. And the fact that UConn doesn't have a Nick Boyd-esque type of guard, and actually come to think of it, Houston did, and you were still able to minimize that. I'm just getting the sense that Illinois figured something out. They unlocked something that goes beyond just, oh, they're playing better defense. I think it's overall as a team, it's an offensive thing. Offense has been as good as normal. Defense is much better, but it just feels as if there is this sort of synergistic thing going on right now where no matter what 5 guys are on the court, they are all operating at like maximum efficiency. Even a Benham Rickhouse, who had the plus 16 plus minus against Houston, but only had 4 boards and no points. But you knew when watching him, I like this 5 on the court right now. And I just wonder if that's not, the thing that's going to sustain this team into Monday. I'm glad it's UConn. I think Duke would have been difficult. And you look at Duke, their last 4 losses dating back to Houston last year in the Final Four, they all had a 95% better win probability or more late in each of those games. In essence, their last 4 losses were all choke jobs. Houston last year in the Final Four. This year was Texas Tech, North Carolina in the regular season, and then obviously UConn. Taking nothing away from UConn because they had to make that comeback on their own and make that shot to win it. But if they had not made that shot, Duke would have survived the close call. And I would have not been feeling good going into Saturday. To say nothing of their talent, which is clear as day, but that, okay, John Shire might not be the best coach in the world, but anytime you win a close game like that, it does seem to galvanize a team to say, whoa, we got to tighten this up a little bit. And I feel like Duke would have been fully capable of doing that. And they were, along with Michigan and Arizona, the top 3 teams in the country. Here's the deal. You're number 4. And there were 8 losses this year, and they were frustrating in their own ways. And it's far more than what the other teams in the Final Four have. If we were in the Big East, I would have liked our record probably something similar to UConn's. But you weren't. So you should win this game. And isn't that a weird thing to say? You're favored to make Monday. You are favored to make Monday. It went down a point, understandably. I think people are looking at the name UConn. They're looking at their history, their coach, and understandably saying, you know what, why would I don't need 2.5 points if I'm picking UConn. Like, I bet a lot of people just money line picked them. And then that probably got that line a little bit closer to 1.5. But as it stands, just looking at it from a matchup perspective, you should feel good. I love the early tip for myself, for Illinois, the fact that they just go out and get it, and that you will have a stadium where, yes, Michigan and Arizona fans will be trickling in, but for the most part, I would imagine that, let's say 2/3 of the stadium are there for the first tip-off as the Michigan and Arizona fans finish up their drinks down the street. I think you're going to have a favorable crowd. It's going to be a cool atmosphere. UConn fans are nuts, from what I understand, but you will be more well-represented. And if this team, simple as this, just plays the way they've been playing from an intensity standpoint, I think things take care of themselves and that they get this win. And from there, well, there you are. I mean, you're taking your shot. On Sunday, I so hope that when I come back here, I'm talking with all of you about whoever we're playing Monday. I hope on Monday I can go into my principal and say, hey, after 7th hour, I got to hit the road. That's when I'm done teaching, and then I got plan and prep. I got to hit the road, and we'll see you. That I hope, beyond hope, that I get to do that. And I think there's a good chance. What if it doesn't? Sadness, disappointment, a bummer that a team that was red hot won't get an opportunity to play for the national title. But not anger and not a feeling of emptiness. And I think my fear when this team was struggling in that 5 to 6 week stretch was that the season would end in such a way that we would be left feeling empty. And Keaton would be gone, Kylan graduate, Benham Rickhouse gone. You go get some new dudes, but you're left with more questions than answers. And oddly enough, from a team standpoint, but also individual players like Tommy and Andrei Stojakovic, you're starting to feel as if, oh, well, we're having this fun right now. And we'll cross this bridge when the offseason comes, but we should be able to go into this offseason with a really good base. Build around that. And if not, be right back here at the Final Four next year, be a contender for it. Stacking seasons, stacking success, stacking March success, which now they've done 2 of the last 3 years. And now you're starting to see, what if the trend is becoming that Brad Underwood wins in March? And that can switch so quick. I've heard it said before, and I think it bears repeating. You are the coach that couldn't win the big one until you are the coach that wins the big one. You aren't until you do. And as simplistic as that sounds, there's a lot of truth in it, where all of these coaches stub their toe early in their career. It is the rare coach. It's the Shaka Smart or the Brad Stevens that early in their career has a bunch of March success, and you think it is just inevitable. But a lot of guys do struggle. The way in which Illinois teams struggled under Brad Underwood, and specifically the Loyola game, fed into that narrative, and it was difficult to shake it until they did. And not only did they do so, but they left no doubt. So, do we win Saturday? And if we do, how are you going to celebrate? And that's a cool place to be. I was watching clips of that Illinois-Louisville game in 2005. Illinois won 75-60. Not particularly close. It was a 75-62. Regardless, double-digit win. They really pulled away in the second half. And I remember that day vividly because that was actually, now that I think about it, the opportunity to drive through campus and see the craziness on Green Street, because I'm pretty sure it was spring break when Illinois made the Final Four by beating Arizona. So I want to say as if students were not there after that great comeback, but they were back in town in time for the Louisville game. And I would love to see what campus would be like Saturday if Illinois wins. But in a weird way, as crazy as last Saturday was with making the Final Four, I think it would be celebration coupled with, kind of like after the Houston game, this sense of, okay, see you Monday. And I felt that as we were bidding adieu to our garage friends after the Houston game. All right, guys, same place, same time, or fortunately a little bit earlier against Iowa. We'll see you in 2 days to get this done. And I would imagine that is kind of the pivot that you make, that I made back in 2005 after beating Louisville, and that I hope to make again Saturday after hopefully beating UConn. So we're here. We're going to the Final Four. It's in Indy. It's stone's throw away. Team left on their buses today. They got a hero's farewell from the assembled masses. There was a sick Final Four jersey, and I hope they print a bunch of those. And it's just like an old, I think there's a Simpsons gif, or maybe it's Futurama, but just like, here, take my money. Take my money. And I know, judging by some of the comments, you guys are spending plenty of it, and that's okay. These are the things worth spending money on, getting those little trinkets and doodads and T-shirts that will commemorate something like this, which is a lifetime memory. So let's hit up the chat thread before we dip out of here today. This from Big Toda. 80 minutes to the ultimate goal, and this team would be bigger than legends. They would be gods for all time in Illini lore. I had to get some water there, Big Tota. But to that point, I had a student 2 semesters ago in my first intro to sports journalism class, and she has been covering the team for the Daily Illini. And I sent her a message saying, hey, next Tuesday after you're done covering the Final Four, could you come talk with my class about your experience? And I said in the email to her, I hope you're there Monday as well, and that you get to cover the greatest sports story in this university's history, because that's what it would be, full stop. There's nothing that compares when you consider the impact that it would have on this community, on the university. Long a very good basketball program, but seeking that thing. So yes, you were 80 minutes, Big Tota. Woglin Times to see all there at the Final Four. I'm guessing, Woglin, you're going. He continues, or he or she, we don't need to be the better team. We just need to have more points in 40 minutes. Completely doable. Jacob, I'll be there Saturday. Can't wait to just soak it in. Enjoy, Jacob. I know Isaac, our good friend Isaac Ambrose, he's going as well. From Billy, happy April, everyone. Great month to be playing basketball, isn't it? Billy, March basketball is great, but April basketball is the best. I don't want to wait 21 more years for it, but this buys a lot of leeway. It's like, my wife asked me, will this hold the over for a bit? I'm like, yes. Of course I'll be, oh man, I wish we didn't lose that game. And oh man, a second round exit when those happen, because they inevitably do. But yes, it does help you hold things over for a bit. Absolutely. And I'm just glad that they remember when, and I love the 05 team, but that it doesn't just need to be them. We want these more recent examples. That's why with Caleb Williams and the Bears, part of the excitement is maybe this can be the guy that will make the 85 Bears the 85 Bears, and I'll have the 2027 Bears or something like that to call my own. And I know for a lot of younger fans, they get to do this. I mean, Isaac and Trevor were young when the team made the Final Four in 05. Super young, and they kind of remember it, but not indelibly. So this is theirs. This is for them. All right, also from Embrats, I like us against Arizona and UConn. Arizona-Michigan is an interesting matchup, Embrats, and I think Arizona wins, but I can't tell if that's me wanting Arizona to win or if I actually think they're better. I do think they win. I wish I could give you more specific reasons as to why, but for some reason, all year long, I felt as if Michigan's backcourt is merely good, and it's Yaxel, Merez, and Mara that make that team click. Not Cadeau, not McKinney's good off the bench, Gale, Burnett, fine. All of them. They're all good. Great team defense. They play fast. I think Arizona's got more talent in the backcourt. And if they can just match up front court-wise, I just feel like they're better. All right, from Big Tota says, I'm proud of you, Carp. You speak for a large chunk of the fan base, and you own it. Got to. I have to, and I always would. I mean, like, I would not come on here and cross my arms and say, yeah, well, it was only Iowa. I mean, in Underwood, you still had those fouls that he had his team commit at the end of the Houston first half. No, that'd be nitpicky and dishonest. Yeah, you got to change course sometimes, and sometimes it does take results to do that. But I appreciate that, and it was a tasty cookie, or a cookie hat. Would it be a cookie? I guess if it's a Pringle and a Rolo, it's hard to say. All right, let's see here. Embrats, chipmunk hat, and I like it, and I have chipmunks. A chipmunk hat. I'm intrigued by this notion, Embrats. Okay, we got a few more here. Yeah, Big Toto said you're not supposed to enjoy eating it. I know. I did enjoy it, and hopefully gave you guys a nice, easy little treat you can serve up on Saturday in honor of Merck. Which, can we just talk about how freaking awesome Merck is? Defense says, well done, Carp, but I was hoping to see a little slice of fabric off of a real hat. If you guys give me a second, before I go, do I have scissors in here? Question, would a knit cap work if I had a little bit of a knit cap? Okay, we can try that. I think that's fair. I think it will pass without any complications. So, I mean, my dog eats stuff off of her bones, so like she's got a small stomach. So let me work on that, defense. Let's see here. Big Tota says, my wife told me I was worse than a teenage girl at a Backstreet Boys concert when I got to meet Jay Lehman in 08, but it was awesome. Yeah, I mean, these guys are rock stars, and the cool thing about the players on this team, and this has been the case all year, there were losses that were frustrating, but they were a likable group. And to see the emotion that they displayed at the end of it, Merck especially, but even just Keaton just beaming as he dribbled it out on Saturday against Iowa, all the way down the line, Big Z, holding his coach's shoulders and giving them hugs, and just like the true joy with which they celebrated that victory. Any team would celebrate, but I do think there is an intangible likability that this team has. I think there's no doubt about that. Big Toto says, nothing to stop us from being the next UConn and make the Final Four 3 times in the next 4 years. The ceiling is finally broke. Whoa, Big Toto. I would love to say, yeah, man. I mean, listen, of course it could happen. It's extremely difficult. I'll take a Final Four every, I don't know. God, what's Tom Izzo's clip, even at his peak? Has Tom Izzo made 5 Final Fours in 25 years, give or take? Maybe 6. You get to that clip, you're a Hall of Famer. So, yeah, keep getting bites of the apple. But it does feel, to that comment, Tota, that you've broken through a ceiling. And does that mean it gets easier in some way going forward? I mean, only time will tell. But all right, let's see. From AO, hey, AO, let's relax. Penn 500 team, VCU mid-major, Iowa 7th in the Big Ten. Good victory against Houston, decided to shoot threes. Thing is, AO, I would agree. 3 of your opponents were breaks in the bracket. Houston was not, though. And Houston was a Final Four pick for a lot of people. The thing that I think travels through all 4 of those games and into UConn is defense. And you mentioned UConn, or Houston, shooting threes to the extent that they did and not making them at a super high clip, but these were contested. You also were kind of siphoning them to the baseline. I mean, God, how many baseline shots did Sinak shoot? Fine. Take the 18-foot baseline jumper. I don't give a shit. Like, take those to your heart's content. Take the floaters from the free throw line, Kingston Flemings, which he made a couple of. But all things considered, you were really forcing them into not ideal shots. They could have made more of them. It could have been more of an interesting game, but they wouldn't have won. So, yeah, I don't know. If you would beat Houston by a point in some fluky feeling kind of way, I'd understand this notion that we coasted to this with good luck, but I don't know. Big Toad asked when we get a 200 level Final Four shirt. I don't think I might run into some copyright issues with that. I think Embrats is getting me off the hook here, saying, "Nah, you don't need to eat the knit cap. You ate a hat." So defense, yeah. If I had a hat in here, I don't know. If they win a national title, I will eat a piece of an actual hat, and that I will do, because it can take as much time as it needs to digest. And that's totally fine. But as we sit here on a Wednesday afternoon, thank you. We got about 150 folks watching throughout our different streaming platforms. And it's a podcast of gratitude to this team and to Brad Underwood and this coaching staff all the way down for giving us a memory and setting us up for a weekend full of a few more of them. And that is what sports and being a fan of sports is all about. Why we keep chasing this is for those very memories. So I will be back on Sunday, and I hope the bearer of good news. You never know, but I hope to be. And I hope beyond hope that on Monday, I got a refundable room just in case, that Monday I'm meeting a friend over there if Illinois were to make it. And figure out the ticket situation as it unfolds. But come on, we're in the Final Four. This is cool. And they got an opportunity. They can win it all. Extremely difficult, but not impossible. It's not like these odds for Illinois. I think they're plus 425. Well, that's saying you're the 3rd favorite in all of this. And Michigan and Arizona, Vegas is saying the winner of that wins the title. I get it. It would be a tall task. But if they were to make it, I want to be in that building to see if they can do it. I want to be in that building in case they do it. And even if they didn't, and even if it were Michigan that you lost to, as agonizing as that would be, well, you got this far. Sell it. Keep working. Bring in the studs. Find your way to get a few more bites of the apple for deep runs. And maybe that ceiling can crack. and you can finally get there. But as it stands, you have an opportunity to do that. And what's so crazy about sports is I'm saying this on a Wednesday afternoon. I don't know where I'm going to be next Wednesday, meaning, am I going to be living in a world where Illinois is the national champions of college basketball? It's possible that a week from this moment, that is the reality we're living in. And the notion alone, a little giddy thinking about it. And why the hell not? Why not? Far crazier things have happened, and it's not some shot in the dark. They can do this. They've been playing incredibly well. And if they do that for 2 more games, then they can cut down the nets one more time and do the ultimate thing for a program that deserves it and a fan base that deserves it too. So thank you all so much for tuning in on this day. Rainy, cloudy Wednesday, a little bit rainy Saturday, but done by game time. So perfect garage weather. Before I get out of here, got to remind you, Hamilton Walkers in downtown Champaign, steak, seafood, and spirits. 5-star service. Not to mention the food is terrific. In their scratch kitchen, everything is made in-house. And I always recommend bone-in steak, medium. Doesn't matter really what cut you like. The bone-in, though, always seems to be my go-to. Steak fries for the family-style side. They're crisp, perfectly crisp. The scratch house-made ketchup that you dip it in, freaking amazing. Hamilton Walkers, you'll see my picture behind the host stand. Tell them Carp sent you. We really do appreciate them being part of the podcast. State Farm agent Brian Hansen. Life, auto, home, business, renters, you name it, whatever your insurance needs, visit online at brianismyguy.com. Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend. Give them a call at 217-841-4728. Join their maintenance program. Same-day service, no overtime or weekend fees with Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing. And finally, Owen Builders, LLC, online at owenbuildersllc.com for your next home improvement project. Check out a gallery of their work online at owenbuildersllc.com. All right. Have a great rest of your week. Try to get some good shut-eye before Saturday. Try to not think about it too much, but what the hell? Think about it all you want. I've been wearing Illini stuff every day. I'm sure you have too. Soak in it. Bask in the glow. And for those going, enjoy Saturday. I hope you get what you want, and then you can sit back and watch a high-level basketball game between Michigan and Arizona and do a little bit of scouting while you're at it for a potential opponent on Monday. But Illinois is in the Final Four. They have a chance to win a national title. So what the hell? Now all that it's about, tip it off, go play the games, and see what happens. And if they win it all, I will eat part of an actual hat. I love to do that. And hope I get the chance. Have a great weekend, everybody. Hope a really, really great weekend. And we'll talk to you Sunday. It is the 200 level.